reference number. This designation is occurring throughout the province of Ontario. What is the combined growth expectations for the GTA? What's driving growth? There's a number of factors driving growth, and Brampton is being told what our share of growth is. Now, when you look at the city of Mississauga and we say they have lots of high buildings, they are primarily residential, by the way. There is not a skyline of office buildings. They too need additional office jobs, as do we. But when Mississauga was 550,000 people, that was not their skyline. And this is part of our smart planning. Our smart planning, thank you for bringing forward the recommendation of 2010 that put into place a mechanism in Brampton where we would be concerned about the employment capacity in Brampton, the residential capacity in Brampton, the support for people in Brampton. And because we very smartly put that recommendation in 2010, the previous term of council, we can now rely on that because they approved our official plan with that language. We did our homework in the city of Brampton. We have, as they would say, a leg to stand on. It's not new to the province when we say we already have detailed employment policies, and you cannot set those aside to have us take a population that doesn't work for the families of Brampton. So this is a major public issue. I hope it gets the appropriate coverage in local media. It may be debated again at the region. I know Mississauga, Councillor Plush, you're saying they're now objecting to their numbers. I know Caledon is having difficulty with theirs, given the recent reversal of the minister, with 800 jobs from Canadian Tire going to Bolton, or maybe not. Maybe not. That needs more work. Imagine when they did their official job plan, they had 800 jobs there. Now that's a question mark. There's a lot going on down at the province of Ontario. Stay tuned, there's an election coming, and I think this should be, I would ask the residents to ask those candidates at the door, are you going to work to see Brampton treated in fair share for Peel? Are you going to support the government just designating population to Brampton without the appropriate support, especially hospitals? Where's the third hospital land going? When's phase 2? There was no phase 1 and phase 2 when they started to talk about the resurrection of Peel Memorial. It was going to be, you're getting your hospital back. Now it's very careful language. You're getting phase 1, and isn't that exciting? But to know phase 2, it'll have beds. Sure, we'll be 1 million people and still down 1,000 beds. Ask the people 30 hours at emergency, if that makes sense. If they mind waiting a few extra hours because we just added 40,000 more people with no increase in health services to this community. Ask the people, tell the people. I'll tell you, that's what I'm hearing. Councillor Callahan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That population sign must be different because I drove in along the 401, and up on the sign was a numbers which didn't jive with this. It's 800 and something thousand dollars, I think, or 800,000 people. So I don't know where that came from. Well, somebody should. Yes, somebody should. Well, no, this is on the north side of the 4. Well, I guess they are in Mississauga at that point.
The sign on highway signs is related to the census, which is now 5 years out.
So it covers all of them?
So we have, these numbers are population projections for 2031 and 2041. Maybe we should put all those numbers up on the sign so people know when they move here, you're moving to a community of 1 million. Shady Hollow is no more.
Okay, having said that, the major problems that seem to exist, in my humble opinion, are, and obviously everyone else's, I think, is the question of being able to travel from A to B to get a job, to live in Brampton and travel into Toronto to get a job. That just doesn't work. I don't know where the province got its toolbox, but the toolbox doesn't work. They could have gotten away from Metrolinx by simply taking every one of the 400 series highways in Ontario and put them on high-speed rail, where you get off, like in California, you get off at an overpass and you go down and you take a bus to go from where you're going to go from there. Those are modern ways of spreading the property out. I've raised that with a dozen people. I raised it with Jim Smitherman. I raised it with Sabara, with a whole bunch of them, and they just don't get it. What they want to do is they want to create metro links, which in my view will be a disaster, because it's only going to attempt to deal with the problem within Toronto. There's more of us than just Toronto. We have to be dealt with as well in a fair and equal way. And I suggest that we should really be looking at some type of system, much like they have in the U.S., where you travel along on high-speed railways and you get off at certain spots and take a bus elsewhere, instead of putting all our eggs in one basket and thinking that this is the way to deal with it. The other thing that's happening, too, is kind of interesting, is that the housing in Brampton and in Peel, for that matter, they listed in the paper last week that these houses are not selling for the price that they should sell for because of all these other underground things, such as roads and hospital and so on. That's not going to help our situation in terms of the growth of our community. This just boggles my mind that more people keep coming. Maybe it's the allure of the Pearson Airport, and that's the first place they get off at. But I wonder if any of these proposals that we've gotten through studies that were done by the various special people, trying to find one of them, whether or not they took into consideration how many people are in these basement apartments that we have no knowledge of. How do we account for them? How do we establish that they're there, and how do we deal with it in terms of plugging that into the whole overall mix in order to get the infrastructure to be able to continue to build? In my mind, the province has just simply said, turned a blind eye to this. They just want to build, and they want to get everybody into a house. They don't care how they get them into a house. And they forget about whether or not they're going to fit, or whether they'll need a shoehorn to put them in there. That's what they're looking at, is shoehorns. They're not looking at positive planning for over a long period of time. And if this is an election, I think you're right, Madam Mayor, there's going to be an election. These issues should be significant issues. The question of hospital. We do need another one, even though we're looking for Peel Memorial. I drove out to not Windsor, but London, to a hospital out there. The hospital was unbelievable. They had a heliport. They had unbelievable numbers of beds. They weren't overcrowded. The people worked very, very properly. And I wanted to know who their member was that managed to pull off that deal, because that's the best hospital I've seen in Ontario. And the place is not busy. It's not like you wait online till the end of the day and then be told perhaps afterwards. And I don't think I've had anybody do this, but they could actually say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're closed till tomorrow. Come back tomorrow." I don't know where they get it from, where their representation is. Are we so close to Toronto that we sort of bask in the idiosyncrasies of Toronto, and we're outside of the GTA and the small towns where they get perfect hospitals, and we sort of have to drive 120 miles if we want to get a hospital, or we want to get a bed, or we want to get a diagnosis that same day before sundown. So there's a lot to this, and I think the legislators in Toronto are leading the pack. They're pulling us all by the hair. The province wants to gain as many seats as they can in the provincial election, if it's what it's called, and they're catering to them. They have always been catering to them, and we've sat back here and taken the brunt. Same thing with the GO Transit. We should have had GO Transit probably 30 years ago. And the reason it wasn't done was that the people of the day did not want to make it look like they were serving their community as opposed to another one. So they went ahead and they sort of let it go. We've known for that long what is the problem that blocks the 401 or the 401 or the GO Train product. We know what it is. it's a monetary thing which surely could have been bought out, would have probably been bought out for a lot less than Metro Links. So, until we start looking at this in terms of putting it together like an erector set, and just simply put something here, something there, we're going to continue to look like a city without a plan. So I think we have to look at it far and wide and try to convince the people who make the decisions at Queen's Park or federally that if they want to continue to build, they have to come up with some type of a plan where we're recognized as an equal partner.
Providing the mover and seconder agree. Under Part 7, it says the report be forwarded to the Region of Peel City, Mississauga, and Town of Caledon. I'm asking that our objection also be copied to the Premier of Ontario, leaders of the opposition parties, both PC and NDP, the area MPPs, specifically Jagmeet Singh, who's our NDP member, Amrit Mangat, who's our Liberal member, and Vic Dillon, who's our Liberal member. We do not have a member in the Heart Lake area, so if you're in Heart Lake, you're out of luck right now, and we should clarify that these numbers are prescribed to us from the Minister of Municipal Affairs, who, well, we no longer have that, some would say we never did. Councillor Miles?
Call the question.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? As amended? Thank you, that's carried. I should probably put the name under PC leader, Tim Hudak. Council, the next motion is I-4-5, and it's to defer the matter of the supplementary reports for secondary units, secondary review, and a proposed motion. Is there a lot of debate for this? Because otherwise I was going to ask if we could bring forward the notice of motion and deal with the matter that there are many people here this afternoon for, but this is the order we're at. It's a deferral motion, so if there's no one, Councillor Plush, you're on the board, are you speaking to?
Yeah, I'm moving deferral.
Oh, okay. Okay, question, the secondary units.
Well, I want to speak to that for more information.
This is a deferral motion to report back with the appropriate recommendations, supplementary reports, secondary units policy review, and a proposed motion as outlined on the council agenda for April 23. Do we have that proposed motion? This is a proposed motion. I don't know what that means.
So through you, Madam Mayor, a motion of deferral has been moved, and under council's procedural rules, a motion of deferral is not debatable. It must be taken at a vote immediately.
Okay, then.
It's properly moved.
I did. Who seconded? Yeah, we asked for more. Grant Gibson seconded it. We're not debating it today. We need more information. Let's have the one debate when we get all the information.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the staff recommendation in the supplementary report was to defer this matter. A proper deferral motion has been moved and signed by Councillor Hames and Councillor Moore, and Councillor Paleshi's first on the board, and he's moved deferral, which has already been moved. So that is a proper motion before council, and under procedural rules, it must be dealt with immediately, without debate.
Can I ask a question to clarification?
Sure.
Yeah, just, when is the report expected to come back? There's no date, mentioned on here as to when.
When you have the info. John, can you, let me ask the city manager, it's a hope to come back in the second quarter, third quarter?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not going to give you a precise date because these are relatively complicated matters. We have to do the thorough research, and we'll come back, we'll give you advance notice of the target date. But it's very important that we do the research for these matters and report back with the comprehensive analysis that the committee requested.
Okay.
And that's fine, and, just for clarification,
So we're not approving it today, and there's a motion for deferral. All those in favor of deferral? Thank you, that's carried. committee reports, Councillor Pelletier for minutes of planning and Councillor Dillon next for minutes of committee. Planning first, Councillor Pelletier.
Yeah, committee, you have the minutes of the planning committee. Any comments or questions?
None on
Seeing
the board?
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
All
Pass it
those in
back to you for
favor?
ratification.
It's carried. Committee of Council, Councillor Dillon.
Council member, you have a minutes, April, which date was there? April 16th, committee meeting. You have any questions, concerns?
First thing.
Council Miles?
There are delegations to speak to the minutes of the transition committee meeting, which is on the committee of council, but the motion has to be, we have to waive the rules of procedure and reopen, which you have those motions.
I've asked the clerk, and he said approving the minutes will not interfere with the notice of motion that's coming forward under new business.
So
I
through you,
thought you told me in order to add the delegations, we added the delegations under the minutes of the,
so through you, Madam Mayor, once I'm clear what the purpose of the delegation is, if the purpose of the delegation is to speak to what may be a motion to reopen council's question with respect to the composition of the BDC Transition Committee, those delegations should not be permitted unless council reopens the matter. If the purpose of the delegation is to speak to the minutes of the BDDC Transition Committee of March 25th, which were considered by Committee of Council last week and are on today's agenda as part of item 2, that is a proper delegation request.
well, they're both on. I mean, it's both.
They are
The
separate.
the composition of the committee was dealt with at the transition committee, which was dealt with at committee of council, but it was also dealt with.
Mr. Clerk, can I ask, by approving the minutes and then later in the agenda dealing with the revised composition, are we compromising that by approving the minutes, or should we hold the approval of the minutes until we got,
The
and
city
do it out of
manager,
order?
the city manager brought the letter from the BDDC in regards to the transition to the first transition committee meeting, so it was on that agenda.
Can I just?
That's correct. And through you, Madam Mayor, my advice to the committee at that time was very clear that that is not a matter for that committee to reconsider until council reopens the matter. Council made a decision with respect to the composition of the BDDC Transition Committee, and only council can reopen that matter, after which time it's fair debate for this council as to changing the composition and hearing delegations. But it's up to council to make that decision first with respect to reconsidering its decision on the composition of the committee.
So shall we bring
I-
those
I-
motions
So
forward?
what I'm going to do, if the clerk says it's okay, I'm going to set aside the minutes of J2, so there's no complication, and go to some other items on the agenda if we could, if council agrees, so then we don't have to, then we know we're not compromising and we can talk about the BDDC.
Can we not
I do
just
that?
move the business of the BDDC forward and then deal with the minutes?
Okay, council, I have a motion to move item P1 forward. There's one notice of motion in front of that, but I think that's very brief. But why don't we bring P1 forward? Council, we now have P1. All those in favor of P1 coming forward, we need to make sure this is democratic. That's good, we're doing that. We're now on item P1. Council, item P1 is, I need a 2/3 vote. There's going to be two 2/3 votes called. The first 2/3 vote is to waive the rules of procedure. Normally, when you file a notice of motion, the topic is dealt with at the following meeting. Today, we're going to have a notice of motion tabled and dealt with at this meeting. That would need to be waived in terms of a procedure. Am I correct? Okay, so all in favor of waiving the rules so that this notice of motion can be dealt with today? All those in favor? That is carried. Carried?
Yes.
Okay. The next, now that we've waived the rules, the subject itself needs a 2/3 vote to reopen a decision made prior to deal with the composition. There's a motion to reopen the transition team composition. We need a 2/3 vote to allow that debate to occur. All those in,
Before we call the question, can we have a clarification? I believe the mover has an opportunity to make a few
not before
statement
it's
as to
open.
why, to clarify clearly as to why you want to reopen this issue, Councilor Meyer?
Yes, the chair, the mover of the motion can make
Yeah.
some brief remarks
Right.
appealing to council to see the logic and it is logical to reopen this particular matter.
Well, I think, Madam Mayor, at this point in time, um, the BDDC at the meeting where council passed the composition of the committee was unaware that council was going to amend the motion on representation. So the BDDC, at their next meeting, were really quite upset that at the end of the day, out of a committee that had 7 members of council, the CAO, and the executive director of the BDC, and only 1 member representing the voting members of the BDDC, which was Mr. David Harmsworth acting as chair, didn't believe that that was adequate representation to deal with the transition of the BDDC. So they asked for additional representation, and we were told that it would have to come back to council in order for it to be dealt with. So I did try and raise it at general committee at the minutes, with the minutes of the BDDC, and at that point in time, again, I was instructed that it would have to come back to council with a 2/3 vote to reopen it. So there are representatives of the BDDC who would like to speak to the matter.
They cannot speak unless the matter's before council. It will
Yes.
not be before this council unless it is reopened. So at this point, I'd like to call for a vote on the
It
reopening.
just allows us to reopen and discuss the composition of the BDDC.
I'm told by the clerk I cannot recognize additional speakers because then we're into the debate of the topic. It needs to be properly reopened. So at this point, you've moved the reopening, seconded by
Councillor
Councillor
Moore.
Plushy because he's on the BDDC. Oh, okay, I don't have that one in front of me. All those in favor of reopening? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's unanimous. Isn't that good? Now, at this point, we
can I
can
move?
accept delegations, and Councillor Miles, would you like to make opening comments? Is there a revised
No,
motion?
I would like to move the delegations from the BDDC be added to the agenda and be heard.
Okay,
Because this really is the BDDC wanting to speak to this issue.
absolutely. Now,
So-
normally people would register with their first and last name and define that they're speaking on behalf of themselves or the BDDC, and that would be in the record. We couldn't allow that because the matter wasn't on the agenda. Now it's on the agenda. Could I ask from those people who are
I
here?
have the
Oh, you have the list? That makes it easier.
list of given-
There's notes. Council, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, come on, how many people need to tell us how many, what's been here? 5 delegations?
It's an important matter. Does that tell you that?
Well,
All those, do I have to have a vote to add the delegations? No?
5.
Pardon? Council, I'm now adding,
How many do they want? Okay, I
3.
support 2 more.
They want
I'm
3.
sorry, well, I'm going to read the names of the people I'm accepting as delegations. First of all, Peter Van Sickle, and we do look forward to your presentation, as always, excellent. Mr. Andrew McKenzie. Andrew, there you are. Thank you for being here. Mr. Don Naylor, past chair of the BDDC, good to have you here today. Mr. David Harmsworth, chair current of the BDDC, good to have you here today. And Mr. Lewis, where are you? There you are. We don't think of you as Mr. Lewis, otherwise known as
Mr. T.
AKA T by Daniel.
T by Daniel.
And so you can see this is a concern from the financially contributing members of the BDDC on the direction of their organization. So we will take the delegations first, as we would normally do had you been on the agenda formally. So the first delegation is Mr. Peter Van Sickle. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, members of council, city staff, BDDC members, members of the public. As president of the Brampton Downtown Development Corporation, I'm appearing before you today to present the context and concerns about the manner in which the review of the operations of the BDDC are being undertaken. You know, since my arrival, we've reorganized, we've hired and groomed top talent, we've introduced new events, programs, created legitimate tourist attractions, enhanced the laneways, and brought in entertainment. We've also been active with property prospecting, negotiating with prospective tenants, driving financial pro formas, conceiving property developments. You know, development is a very challenging undertaking. The average lifespan is 8 years, and the fruits of the work are really never visible until the final months. We're gaining momentum every day. We've got people inside and outside of Brampton considering us in a new light. You know, an example is a composition of the audience that's coming to see the world-renowned planner at the Rose Theatre this evening. It's Gil Penalosa. And I invite you all. It's 5:30 and it's free. There's a really high level of interest from people outside. It's at the region, it's at Mississauga, and it's reaching to all of the people who are in the Western GTA as we're providing some leadership insight and expertise from people like Gil Penalosa to assist with some planning insights. We made great stride with our membership. The move to our Queen Street storefront gave us a point for connection and engagement with the street. Our committees regularly meet on marketing and development matters. And though we cater to a paying membership, we welcome input from interested individuals throughout downtown. We operate in a manner that's transparent, collaborative, and engaging. A recent example is the 8 to 80s Doable Neighborhood Project that we won a grant for. At the beginning of this month, we had interviews with stakeholders from all over the downtown neighborhood. Some 35 people were involved, church groups, board of trade, members, our development committee, our board, and just generally people interested in making downtown a better place. We've collected these views and we'll be acting on the recommendations. That's how community building is done. It's done in the open, asking questions and listening. The motion that was supported by the BDDC was one that accepted the staff recommendation of Malone Given-Porson's report in principle, subject to further discussion of the timing, the form, and the financial implications of the review. Having a single member of the BDDC board on the transition team is simply inadequate, and we're asking for the intent of the original motion by Councillor Miles to accept the principle in subject, or sorry, to accept the report in principle subject to community consultation and budget, and that there's equal representation of the members on the board of the transition team. And I'm followed by others who will share their comments with you.
Thank you very much. Andrew, are you next? Welcome.
I'm next. I'm not nearly as well prepared as Peter. Anybody who's known me, I've been on the council before, knows I shoot from the heart, and I'll tell you exactly what I think. And as you know, I'm here voluntarily, taking time away from my business to add to what I think is already a great downtown in Brampton. When I moved here 14 or 12 years ago, it wasn't nearly as nice as it is today, and it's getting better all the time. And I'm very passionate about that, and I believe very, very strongly that the heart of a city starts in its downtown core. And I'm very passionate about where we've come. And one of the comments that I think I'd like to give is that at the end of the day, when we look at a city and a downtown core that beats strongly, which it's beating stronger all the time, you're never going to be able to point your finger in any one direction and say that's where it came from, ever. And it's a joint effort. It's a meeting of the minds. It's a single-minded determination to move in a direction. And I believe very strongly that we are moving in that direction. I believe the basis of a development corporation has got to be based on a incredibly sound cooperation between the city and the development corporation itself. Without that, we get nowhere, because if one person's heading south and the other one's heading north, we end up moving nowhere. And in terms of where we're going from here, we've got a lot of people here. I've been here for 3 years. I've spent countless hours on this. And I have to say, my hours compared to people like Don and David are nothing. These guys have given their heart and soul, all for free, right? And all we're really asking for is to have a say in it, right? We're the ones who've put our time and our effort in, and I think it's fair that we get to sit and have our say in what goes on. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Don, welcome.
Welcome, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth if I can. I will watch my time carefully, and I thank you all
You
for
have 5 minutes. Every delegation has 5 minutes.
allowing me to
We'll
speak to
reset. Go ahead.
everyone today. Nice to see staff and member of the public and the BDC members out here today. Couple of growing pain issues that I just wanted to share with you, that the 10-year BDDC review is actually 2 years premature to the 2006-2016 question period. So I question the urgency about why it was brought forward, but we are an organization that accepts the good side of things and will work with people to try to get things done. As Peter said, the BDDC is evolving, it's improving, and is making a difference for downtown. It has not been easy, we all know that. If it was easy, we wouldn't be here today. On a side note, I'd like to congratulate our president, Mr. Van Sickle, for his 3-year anniversary at the helm of the BDDC.
I hope he has 30 more. The best.
The recently completed BDDC review had a number of recommendations. When the consultant, Mr. Parsons, presented the 5 options for a future structure, option 1 and 4 were the focus of preliminary discussions. Option 4 was not endorsed by the board at that time and never has been since. It was made very clear to Mr. Parsons that consultation with our membership would be essential for consensus to be found. What was the hurry, we asked? We are still asking, what is the hurry? The recommendation of option 4 by the consultant to Committee of Council shortly after his presentation to us was shocking and premature. The schedule to deliver the new structure is equally alarming. Haste makes waste. We all need to remember this. So my next topic is on change is healthy and change is good. We welcome change. That is why we're willing to participate in the review process in a very conscientious manner. The opportunity to seek meaningful change started with our official plan review process last year. Excuse me. In our contribution to the official plan review, the BDT stated that downtown is a unique and distinct community worthy of and needing special attention within the plan to grow and to in fact prosper. Combining downtown with the central area to the east was not encouraged by the BDDC. The reasons were very clearly stated in our 5-page submission. We have often spoken about expanded boundaries. We welcome it in order to grow, but we want it done where it makes sense relative to the needs of the core and the people who choose to work and live here. In our view, future boundary expansion should not extend past the new Peel Memorial Health Precinct in the east. In planning terms, it really boils down to a very simple point. People-driven needs in the downtown, which is what the downtown is, versus the automobile-driven needs of highway commercial, which is what Queen Street Corridor is. These are both important parts of our city's economy, and we must respect them both, and we do. However, the city is well equipped to handle the planning and design needs of the Queen Street Corridor. It has the qualifications, the staff, the mandate, and the power to handle it just fine. And the city has also put a lot of effort trying to make Queen Street Corridor a more humane place. The BDDC must remain focused on the needs of downtown. That is why it was created in the first place. So bringing solutions home. The BDDC is not afraid of change, and it welcomes it. Change is healthy and necessary, but change must have results based on merit and must be a collaborative and transparent process. Big things are happening right now in our downtown. 15-minute all-day service on all GO lines. That is a campaign message from the provincial Liberals. Politics aside, and we've heard earlier today about congestion, all the concerns about it, this needs to happen. It doesn't matter what government gets in, it needs to happen. No more important than right here. Lifting SP7 restrictions on flooding will begin a development surge in downtown. A strengthened BDDC can and should play a major role in this success. I want to personally congratulate John Corbett and his Special Policy Area 7 team for his success in this capacity and the future that's coming to remove those restrictions. Well done and congratulations. The city is committed to delivering a comprehensive development master plan under the watchful eye of Marilyn Ball, our planning chief. When complete, this plan will guide and protect the unique human characteristics of our heritage downtown. It will also define future built form and the importance of pedestrian-friendly streets. Later tonight, Gil Penelosa from 8 to 80 will enlighten us on how this will help our city. So to conclude, the attraction of youth, innovation, and entrepreneurial thinking are the keys to the future of downtown. I'm very concerned about the ability of the city to attract its share of these unique ingredients without a strong collaborative development corporation. A balanced, well-represented transition team given a proper time frame to do its work, will make all the difference. And by the way, Paul, with respect to population growth and everyone here, send downtown the population growth. We'll take everything you can give us. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon,
Welcome, Daniel.
Your Worship, and all the lovely councillors and beautiful people in the audience here. I'll be the first to admit that I really don't understand anything about politics, which I mention all the time. I don't know the ins and outs of what it takes to run a city. That's not my expertise, but I sell a really good cup of tea. I'm really just here in support of BDDC and to tell a quick story about where I came from and how BDDC helped me to get there. And my business is right now about 4 years old. We sell tea. We really attract a lot of attention from Toronto as far as to the States. And I started out thinking, okay, I started my business that I'm heading straight for downtown Toronto. For every obvious reason, it seems like business is booming there. It's awesome, it's fun, it's young, it's thriving. When I would talk with my friends, we would say, okay, yeah, we're gonna be right downtown, Yonge Street or whatever. That's our Canadian dream. When I actually started my business, my mom, instruction from my mom was start local. You've grown up in Brampton all your life. Why don't you start your business in Brampton? Didn't seem like the best way for me to start a business because, frankly, I'll be honest, I never spent any of my time in Brampton. I was always downtown Toronto. I was always in Mississauga. I never came to the downtown Brampton just because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't hear anything about Brampton. I took mommy's advice because she knows best. And I started getting involved with Brampton in the economic development on the second floor. I started going to the BBOT, and I started getting involved with the city. I met great people. I met some of the councillors with familiar faces here. I started to get really involved, and something was changing. I could tell because I lived here, and I never felt that Brampton's actually on a roll. Now it was on a roll. Something was happening 4 years ago, and it led me to start looking deeper. I went to some events, smaller events, and people would say, you know what, you need to go to the Downtown Development Center. And I said, what is that? Finally, going through downtown, I see this colorful, beautiful studio, and it's a development center. Never knew what it was, didn't pay any mind to it. Then I went to the Lowe's Christmas Market, which was kind of the first major event in Brampton for Tea by Daniel. Met beautiful people, and I remember one customer said to me, they said, every time Brampton does something good, they take 10 steps backwards. Why is that? And I'm like, I'm not sure. Like, what do you mean? And he pointed around at all the businesses that were closed at 8:30. He said, we want to live here. We want to be here. We want to live Brampton, play Brampton. But it feels like there's not that collective effort. And I said, you know what? I promised him something. I said, we are going to drive change. Now I know, like you so finely stated, one person can't drive change. Nevertheless, we started selling more teas, and we had a great time at that event. We heard about some more events. We heard about the farmers market. We got involved with it. We went, we danced, we served tea. People loved it. We see thousands of people walking up and down the farmers market. They loved it. Again, people were like, this is awesome, your tea is awesome. We need more places like this in Brampton. We made another promise. We said, you know what? Maybe we'll open a store one day in Brampton. Blindly, because the finances did not back that up. But we said that. And they would come week after week. We went through the farmers market season. Tea by Daniel started growing. Long story short, yes, we have a store now on Main Street. Now, all those people I promised, I finally got to say to them, here we are. We're open. We're giving you a new, fresh business. We see the Works Burger coming. We see the ice cream shop. We see all these different businesses, Dolcezza Cupcake. And it's like, oh my goodness, guys, I think for once, Brampton is taking a few steps forward, and it looks good. Still never knew who was behind this change. Now that I'm in business, I found out Peter Vansicle, the team, Sudan, Heather, all these beautiful people were behind this change. They were the ones that were sending out these newsletters. These were the ones who were focusing on the downtown, which I believe also is the heart of a city. Now, I started telling my friends, guys, I'm open. You need to come. Bring your business, because all my friends have businesses, which are all young people who are looking to get into the entrepreneur world. Now my friend is building his store, upscale hair salon, right next door to mine. A friend last week came in and said, what do you think about the downtown? I point them to my big brothers, which is BDDC, who's helping me, get involved in the community. So there's a juice bar healthy juice bar that's planning to come, a breakfast place that's planning to come. Finally, we have something that it's worth talking about when it comes to the business community. And my wife and I are planning to move downtown Brampton to the condo in a few months if I sell some more tea. Well, right now, still have a lot more tea to sell. But if I do sell that tea, we are planning to go right to this condo. All of a sudden, I want to take, and I used to live, by the way, right across from Square One at the Ovation condo. So I'm not just blindly speaking. I moved my whole lifestyle to Brampton because finally, and it's not just BDDC, I'm aware of that. It's the city hall, it's the councilors, it's the businesses, but collectively, something is happening in Brampton. When I heard rumor that BDDC is going away, it was like you're taking my big brother away from me. The person who introduced me to some of these events and got me going, now I hear that they're gonna be, I'm like I said, I don't know the politics about it, but I heard that they're gonna be deminimized or something like that. I heard that they're going away, and I just didn't like that. So I just wanted to come and state my story and say, from the streets point of view, businesses are planning to come into Brampton, fun businesses. I have people from Newmarket taking trips down Acton, Georgetown, saying, you know, so this is a great business. I think Brampton it's happening. It is happening. Thanks to your efforts, please, let's continue it. Thank you.
I think you should have an applause.
Daniel, don't forget, without tea, there would have been no American Revolution.
There you go. The Boston Tea Party. There you go.
Mr. Harnsworth, Chair of the BDDC.
So I have to follow that.
Yeah, why didn't you speak before you
Yeah,
did?
well, members of council, Madam Mayor, city staff, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for reopening the issue for us. We feel it's very important. As chair of the BDDC, I'm here to reinforce the need for sufficient time to allow the proper engagement and consultation of our members on this very important issue of the future of our downtown. At this point, we're working very hard to make our members aware of the true potential ramifications of splitting up the BDDC and clarifying the misinformation that seems to be out there regarding the advantages of doing so. It is imperative that this process be honest and transparent. As illustrated in our very successful and very well-attended town hall meeting last Thursday, there is a great momentum towards support of the BDDC in its current form among our membership. And with our AGM set for April 30th, another opportunity to further educate our members on the potential downside of the loss of this organization, I feel that the momentum that we see now will continue and increase, and that it is highly unlikely that the general membership of the BDDC will support the dismantling of the BDDC or option 4 in the Malone-Gibbons-Parsons report. We will back up this display of support for the BDDC with a petition that, although only out for a few days, is growing quickly. The BDDC took years to build, has never been healthier or more active than it is right now. To dismantle it now in such a hasty manner is not a good decision. Thank you. I have with me a motion that we would like to present. It's complicated. I don't know whether I should be reading it or whether it should be passed to the clerk.
Well, somebody would have to move it.
Clerk has it.
On this side of
course.
the table, Councillor Miles, are you moving this motion?
Yeah, I'm on next,
That,
so
that
I'll
you,
speak to it.
do we have copies in front of us?
No, I think that he's gonna read it.
Well, I just want to, that would be then the first motion before the chair, so thank you for that. And, okay, so, council, I need a motion to first receive the 5 delegations. And I have the motion here. It's moved by Councillor Miles and Councillor Plushy. You're the BDDC folks. All those in favor of receipt of the delegations? Thank you. I also then have the motion that's on the board, and I wanted to say to all of you representing the BDDC here today, and anybody watching, that as the mayor of the city who was lobbied, pressured, pushed on the importance of having a downtown development corporation, a first in Ontario, where we pushed the then member of parliament to provincial parliament to see this legislation. We did not receive the full legislation, but we received enough to plant a seed and do something exciting. Daniel, your enthusiasm speaks to the very essence of the future of the downtown. It's infectious. It's contagious. We are trying to build this centerpiece for people, and bringing the kind of businesses that you bring is exactly what happens. The plans and the effort contributed to by the business community in partnership with the city of Brampton for a 10-year period. I don't know if anybody's going to answer the question, why is the review 2 years premature? That's not likely to get an answer, but I think you know. I think what's important here today is I heard about openness, transparency, give everyone a chance to build consensus, to do the right thing. I hope that we achieve that today. We don't have a lopsided participation that shuts out the people who've put their own family income and their future on the line for downtown Brampton. What a signal that would send. What a signal that would send. So, Councillor Miles, thank you for the work you've done to get this matter back with some balance, and I hope that I hope Council permits the fair balance of participation. After all, would you not want, isn't it great, so often we're doing things and we can't get people to be involved. Here you are saying, we want to be involved. We're there. It's our livelihood. Of course we're not going to shut you out. I'm sure we'll make those appropriate amendments today. And thank you for wanting to see a successful downtown for maybe 800,000 people or maybe 900,000 people, depending on how that goes. I think we should be going back for the remaining legislation that was not originally provided when I think it was Neil Davis at the time that drafted the recommendation and encouraged it through the city of Brampton. So if it was right then, it can't be wrong today. Councillor Miles, did you want to speak to the resolution? And then Councillor Sprovieri and Councillor Moore. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I also wanted to say that Councillor Palache and Councillor Hames and I have met and spent a lot of time with the members of the Brampton Downtown Development Corporation, not just the elected members, but also the other members of the board. And I think there's a lot of issues that they're concerned about, but I think the issue of representation on the transition team is one that people are really, really upset about. You have to understand that in the same way that we are elected as members of council to represent our constituency, members of the BDDC, other than Mr. Van Sickle, who is an employee, they're elected. They're elected to represent their membership, and the membership today exceeds 400 members. So when the Mr. Kudajar came with the staff report and saying that the staff report was recommending option 4, the BDDC said, well, that's not enough time for us to go to our membership. So even though I think the BDDC had felt that this whole change or transition thing had been pushed on them too quickly, they were willing to participate in it, but never did they assume that they would have one elected representative on the transition team. It's just unfair and unequitable.
It's wrong.
It's wrong. You have a transition team today where you have 7 members of council, albeit 3 of us sit on the BDDC, but we're there to represent the city. So we have four city councillors, 3 other councillors. The CAO is part of the transition team. You have the executive director, who is a staff person, and you have David Harmsworth. He's the chair, and he is the only actual voting member of the BDDC who is sitting on a transition team, who's supposed to represent the whole group and make a decision for their membership. That is fundamentally unfair. So that is why, Madam Mayor, I brought the motion to council to say, okay, Mr. Kudajar felt it was important that we we move ahead, and he was speaking on behalf of the CAO and executive management team. We recognize that the BDDC said, okay, but because we haven't had time, ask the members of council who sat on the committee to request that council understand that they were supporting it in principle based on the consultation with their members. They want to go talk to their members, only made sense. And so that is the resolution that was put before council and was voted on and passed. And I did spend considerable time going over the tape of the council meeting where that was introduced, discussed, and passed. And then asked Mr. Fay to do the same. So I think it's really important for members of council to have the clarification as to what council actually passed, because it's not what people think. So Mr. Fay, could you at least clarify that point?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes. So in November 2013, Committee of Council considered a report from city staff, which was covering a report from a consultant, and it was as a result of a review of the governance structure with respect to the BDDC. Both the consultant and the staff recommended option 4 of the 5 options. And when that was considered at that meeting in November, there were amendments moved to make the resolution essentially say endorse option 4 in principle, subject to consultation with the BDDC membership and budget implications. Having said that, council made that decision. That decision was ratified by council. So council has already set a strategic path on where they wish to go, which is with option 4. And that will be a final decision that will come back for council after the work of the implementation plan has been completed by the BDDC Transition Committee. It doesn't preclude other options if new information comes to light, but council has set a direction for this implementation plan. It is option 4. But it will be subject to consultation. As you know, as a member of the BDDC Transition Committee, there is a consultation program planned for this.
So it doesn't negate the Transition Committee looking at or considering the other options that were a part of the recommendation report by Lee Parsons.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I guess I understand it would be context. Council has decided in principle that council prefers to take the path down option 4. So that is the path that they're proceeding with at this point in time. Should new information come to light, should the work of the Transition Committee identify other alternatives, presumably those may be things that may surface and may inform the Transition Committee's final recommendations to council. But right now, the path is option 4.
Okay, but so I think the important clarification, though, is that it's not just option 4. Option 4 isn't the only thing on the table today. Members of if it's subject to consultation, well, we better clear this up, because if this is subject to consultation with the BDDC and its members, it's subject to consultation with the BDDC and its members. I specified and clarified that, spent considerable amount of time talking about that at the meeting. It's on the tape, you can watch it. You agreed to that. The city manager agreed to that. The resolution was quite clear that the recommendation would have to come back to council. It was not a fait accompli. So the BDDC, that's what they want to hear from you, is that was passed. The clerk has clarified that's what was passed. It's a subject to. It doesn't mean it's a done deal. And people need to know it's not a done deal. Yes, we're going to look at what option 4 would look like, but that doesn't mean we can't look at option 1, which is strengthening the BDDC to be a organization that perhaps has extended boundaries or extended powers. It was just option 4 was the preferred option in principle by council. There's nothing in there that precludes anything. So as far as from what the clerk has told me, we don't have to vote on that anymore. It's already passed by council, subject to consultation with BDDC and its members and the financial implications. So those 3 things have to be considered by the transition committee before a final decision or recommendation comes back to council, correct? Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor,
We don't have to reopen it, that's what the motion said.
Yes, there's no reopening because council's given its strategic direction on option 4, and subject to the due diligence work as part of the implementation plan, which that's the path that the transition committee is taking at this point in time.
Okay. So with that, then there is the motion that the BDDC has asked for consideration is that they're elected to represent their members. They have over 400 members, whereas the existing composition of the BDDC Transition Committee only has one elected representative. Therefore, be it resolved that the composition of the Transition Committee be amended to add 3 members, one representing the owners category, one representing the tenant category, and one representing the merchant category, and also that the chairman and executive director would remain on as that, the chairman and the executive director. It's felt that Mr. Harmsworth is there to represent the board as a whole. And then the other real issue of concern for us that were sitting at the table at the first transition committee meeting was the time frame. It's the time frame that was before us is absolutely impossible to meet and do the proper consultation and due diligence that's needed to be done. So the BDDC is also asking that the process be amended so that a proper job can be done. There was something like 28 different steps that had to be completed before a recommendation could come back to council, and we're already behind time with it, and it's supposed to come back in June, July. So those were the requests. Thank you, Daniel. Good luck with your business. Okay. So that is that. That's the 2 things. It's simply proper representation, and let's not keep to a time frame that's going to stifle and not allow a proper job to occur.
Thank you. Sierra Corbett, you put your name on the board if you want to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of points of clarification to assist in the understanding of the matter at hand. I think first and foremost, we've heard some comments about a purpose to deconstruct Downtown Development Corporation. That is not at all the case in this matter. What council looked at was a repurposing of the Downtown Development Corporation to focus on one of its major principal original intents, which was development, and not to say that to abandon it. It was to strengthen its role and function around the development side, and also its geography, to look at the synergies with the Queen Street corridor and how that might advantage both the Queen Street corridor and the downtown area, and then provide the strength of a BIA in the downtown area with potential modifications to its boundaries. So that is the basic thrust of the attempt. Again, not to deconstruct a Downtown Development Corporation, but one could argue to strengthen it in a new direction and continue to serve its membership effectively in that regard. Secondarily, the origin of this, I believe the articles for incorporation state that the review must happen prior to the 10th year. And because we just finished our realignment, and because we've just initiated inside City Hall the Office of the Central Area, we see an ideal opportunity to do the review of the Downtown Development Corporation together with the creation of the Office of the Central Area inside City Hall, so we can finally coordinate and harmonize our activities to the best advantages of the businesses and residents in downtown Brampton. So I think that's the reason for it. It's not premature. It's actually timely that we do this in concert with the realignment of city organization and staff in City Hall. In terms of timing, that is a suggested timeline. By no means would we rush this recommendation. If it takes longer to do it properly, we will, but we also do not want to leave angst on the table about what the future might hold. So when the proper analysis is complete and we have arrived at recommendations that we feel are properly supported by analysis and consultation, then that would be the right time to come back to council. And if that's June or July, so be it. If it takes it a little bit longer, so be it as well. So I think that's the items that I've heard that require clarification. I also support the clerk's interpretation of council's direction, that there is a strategic direction that is being prescribed for the transition committee. And that's not to say that it's not a voyage of discovery, that we might find certain modifications. There may be some areas of investigation that might lead us to a different type of conclusion. It might return us to parts of the other recommendations, but certainly there is a strategic direction around number 4. And of course, that can be properly debated when the findings of the transition committee are brought before committee of council and council.
So just for clarification, the transition team can certainly, in the context of discussion, discuss hybrids of the other versions. It doesn't preclude they're not off the table.
If the analysis suggests a redirection, that may be a possibility, but make no mistake, I think council did give a strategic direction towards number 4, and that's